Hey there, everybody. This is Stevie J from AngryMarks.com, and coming up in just a moment, we've got our special interview with Oliver Copp, the creator of the TNM Wrestling Simulator and one half of the Tough Talk podcast, which can be heard regularly on WrestlingObserver.com. So check out this interview as we talk about the Consumer Electronics Show, all the new technology that's on display there this year, and of course, the WWE Network and the features that you will be able to find there once you can subscribe. So we'll be right back with Oliver Kopp. And we're back on the Angry Marks Podcast Network, and today's special guest is Oliver Kopp. You may know him as one half of the Tough Talk podcast. You may know him from the TNM Wrestling Simulator, but today we're going to be talking about the Consumer Electronics Show that took place in Las Vegas this week, and Oliver Kopp has been there all week long, and he saw the WWE Network presentation last night. So, first of all, Oliver, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. How are you?
I'm feeling pretty good, other than I think we both got a little bit of a lingering cold. We're trying to fight that. But talk to us a little about the presentation last night. I was watching it on the live stream over the internet, but you were there in person. So what was it like being there as they rolled this out?
Well, I can't say that they said anything that was surprising to people who had followed the market before, but the whole setup was great. You had a huge ballroom at the Wynn. It was decorated beautifully. The stage setup was perfect. I mean, WWE do know what they're doing in that regard. As you walked in, you had guys like the Big Show and Mark Henry and Great Khali basically just greeting everybody and getting their pictures taken with them. So they really made sure that you felt welcome, which is a good thing. As far as the presentation itself, it felt very rehearsed. Didn't feel very spontaneous, but then again, you should not expect that. And it had its funny moments, like the Monday Night Wars thing with the S.
Yeah, when Triple H made the camera turn around and point at the teleprompter, that was hilarious.
It was great. Just fantastic, especially considering that afterwards, all references also read Monday Night Wars.
One of those cases of the left hand and the right hand not talking to each other.
Pretty much. And again, that's typical WWE. I mean, I've worked with those guys for 20-something years now. It happens a lot. But just leave it at that. No, but seriously, I couldn't say more good things about the product. It's well thought out. The price point is incredible, $9.99, including WrestleMania, including the big 4 pay-per-views, including everything else. I'm going to buy it the minute I can.
Now, we should clarify this because there have been some questions about it since last night. It's not 1 month $9.99 and then you buy another month for $9.99. You actually buy 6-month installments and then they bill it at $9.99 for each of those 6 months.
Right. So basically you have to have a minimum commitment of 6 months. That's true.
And they've timed it out pretty well because of that. They're launching it on February 24th before WrestleMania. So like every year when that next 6 months comes around, you're going to have to sign up for another 6 if you want WrestleMania again.
Mm-hmm. Which makes complete sense from a business perspective. Mm-hmm. You know what? The one concern I have is what happens if the network flops? Are they going to get the genie back into the bottle as far as giving away the pay-per-views for a lot less money than before? Imagine if people aren't willing to pay the $9.99 and they have to move back to the pay-per-view model. What then?
That's a tricky one because then people are not going to be so inclined to pay $70 for WrestleMania when they're used to paying $10. It's going to really hurt them if that ever happens.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, this is a one-way road. There is no way back. They will never be able to go back to the way things used to be.
Which I find kind of funny, actually, because they're saying that they're still going to make pay-per-views available traditional means if you want to order it from cable or DirecTV or whatever you have. So I just can't imagine anybody wanting to order it that way anymore after this point.
Hey, 3 out of 2 people can't act properly. So what are you expecting? I mean, idiot is born every day.
So you're saying that for their revenue model, they're counting on stupidity.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The thing is, it's going to be available on mobile platforms as well. But in some cases, you're not going to be able to order a network package a short time before a pay-per-view. So if you're the kind of spontaneous person who decides on a whim to get WrestleMania, your only option might be to get it on regular pay-per-view, and that's why they're still keeping it around.
That makes sense.
Plus, let's not forget that a lot of territories, especially rural areas, still have trouble getting proper DSL, which you absolutely need for the WWE Network to function properly.
That's true. You're going to need high-speed internet if you're connecting to it with your Roku or Kindle or whatever you're using. If you don't have a robust internet connection, you might be better off ordering a pay-per-view.
Exactly, and that's why they should keep it around, at least for the time being. And it's going to be a while until that gets figured out. I mean, if you're living in the Alaskan outback, it's going to be a while until until you get high-speed DSL into your log cabin.
And speaking of where it's going to be a while, I understand it's only available in the United States initially, and they're going to roll it out to Canada and Australia and other places within a year.
Yeah, that's what they're planning right now. And obviously, if you look at the countries they're addressing, it's mostly English-speaking countries. That's one issue that I think they're going to have in different other countries like Italy, Spain, maybe even Germany, Poland. Basically, countries where English is not the first language, you're going to have a lot of resistance towards having a completely English presentation.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's going to hurt them in the long run because they are so big in Europe. There's, a tour every year that's one of the most profitable tours for WWE when they go to all the countries in Europe. And is that going to hurt them in the long run?
See, the thing is, hardcore fans actually are going to prefer to have the original version. They don't want a German commentary over it or a French commentary. But once you expand past, let's say take Germany. It's a country of 80-something million people, and there are about 200,000, maybe 300,000 hardcore wrestling fans. So that's not too bad. So if you can convince half of them, 150,000, let's say, to buy the package, you're going to look at another $1.5 million in revenue. And actually, it's going to be 1.5 million euros over here. So it's going to be 30% more expensive. Right. If you're going to get the network over here. But that's a lot of incremental revenue for literally no additional cost. Yeah. If and only if you're not going to localize it.
Right. And you're right. The hardcore fans will probably take it no matter whether it's in English or any other language, and they might actually prefer it English first, because I'm kind of a snob about that when I watch Japanese movies or DVDs. I always want the Japanese language commentary, because then the voices are actually synced with the people's faces, as opposed to whatever you might get if it's dubbed into English, and they might not even be saying the same thing.
Well, the thing is, it's not going to be dubbed in any way. You can have commentary from Germans, which is going to be completely different than the commentary you got in the United States. It's not getting translated. It's getting redone.
Right. So it would be completely original. But either way,
exactly.
I can understand people wanting to hear Jerry Lawler instead of whoever it is that might be doing the German version. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not even close. I mean, especially hardcore fans reject the notion of getting a localized version. But it's going to limit them to those hardcore fans in different markets. It's not a bad thing because you want to grow organically. So you got to start somewhere and giving your most ardent fans in the market the product they want, they crave, is the easiest winning proposition you can possibly have.
Yeah, and they are certainly catering to hardcore fans with this because they're going to offer replays of Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, NXT, pretty much right after these shows air. So you're going to be able to get them on demand from the service when you want to watch them.
Absolutely. The one downside I want to say, I didn't see enough, let's say, third-party content on there for the launch. Yeah, you're going to have all the WCW and ECW pay-per-views, but what really would put over the concept of the WWE Network in Germany, for instance, would be having access to the entire WCW library. WCW always outdrew the WWE in Germany.
One of my friends and I were discussing it during the presentation, and I told her I would like to see old episodes of Nitro. Like, I would like to go on a Nitro binge, like the way you go on Netflix and watch an entire season of, say, The Walking Dead back to back. I'd like to watch, like, an entire year of Nitro back to back. I think that would be fun.
It would be, absolutely. And it's a concept you can keep going for years if you want to do it properly.
But I heard a statistic, and I don't know if this is accurate or if this was mentioned by anybody there, but like they have over 100,000 hours of wrestling footage, and only about 2% of that will be available at launch.
Oh yeah, that's sounds about right. I mean, they bought every wrestling library they could get their hands on. Most of it hasn't even been up converted to HD yet. So I know a lot of they got a part of the UWF library, but not all of it. And it's still on its master tapes. It hasn't even been digitized yet. So it's going to be a long process. I know Smoky Mountain is completely done. I know ECW is completely done. I know the WCW library is done from about 1994 to the end. but they're still moving back in time. So you're going to have highly curated third-party content at the beginning.
Right. Now, for our friend Ed, what about World Class Championship Wrestling? How much of that?
Nothing at the beginning as far as
you're breaking Ed's heart right now.
Well, you know what? It's going to have to happen eventually, and WCCW used to be great. I grew up on it in Texas, so I can't wait for the day when the entire library is available there. But you got to keep people coming back, so you can't really put everything out there right away.
That's true.
You got to put it out in increments. It's basically like the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Could Dave put up all the back issues right away? Of course he could. Is it smarter to put out 1 or 2 issues a week? Of course it is, because it's got to keep people coming back week after week and month after month. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And WWE Network is going to be working in pretty much the same way.
Now, what were your impressions of the original programs that they're going to be airing throughout the day on the network? Because I know Legends House, I've heard some mixed reviews about that.
Okay, let me qualify this by saying I've only seen 3 episodes of Legends House. I enjoyed them tremendously. Mm-hmm. They felt a bit staged, they felt a bit phony, but in general, the interaction between the guys was great. Mm-hmm. That said, 80% of what you're going to see there, the reference they're going to do there, are going to go over people's heads. Especially in terms of Pat Patterson and Hillbilly Jim talking. They throw a lot of curveballs that you only understand if you're really hardcore into wrestling.
Mm-hmm. So basically it's a show for Wrestling Observer readers, more or less.
It's a show for Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, you and me.
Well, that's not going to appeal to a broad audience then.
Why do you think they couldn't find a network that was going to air it?
Yeah, I can understand how it became a WWE Network exclusive because of that.
But the thing is, that's a good thing. I personally would buy the network just for Legends House. If there was nothing else on it, I would buy it for Legends House.
So do you think that's the kind of thing that would actually encourage them to make another season of it?
Oh, absolutely. They're gonna have that problem that they're gonna need original programming and more original programming than just shoulder programming like they're gonna do. Who's gonna watch the in-studio stuff?
Right. You're talking about the pre and post Raw and SmackDown shows in that case, right?
That and the daily talk show, the daily in-studio show they're looking at doing. Mm. If it's gonna be like Tuesday Night Titans, fine, I'm gonna watch it. If it's gonna be like Primetime Wrestling, I'm gonna watch it. If it's gonna be a bad comedy show by people who are not really good at doing comedy, I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, I can understand that.
If I look at Raw and SmackDown, sometimes I'm expecting the latter, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I would hope for Tuesday Night Titans. I mean, it had campy comedy. Fuji Vice comes to mind.
Oh yes,
but it was always fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's even got replay value these days. If you can get your hands on a couple of episodes, go for it, because you're gonna laugh so hard you're gonna lose it. You're gonna lose your lunch.
And I think that's one question people have too, is that Classics on Demand was traditionally where you could see stuff like Tuesday Night Titans and Primetime Wrestling, and I think a lot of people who are subscribing to WWE Network are going to want to be able to get those.
They're going to be there eventually. I expect Primetime to get there before Tuesday Night Titans, but a couple of people I've talked to within the company have told me that they're going to go sequentially. So they're going to start at a certain point and move forward. If you were to start with Primetime and then do Tuesday Night Titans, you'd be moving backwards in time.
True.
Which is difficult for people to digest. I mean, if you wanted to watch Superstars of Wrestling, you don't want to start watching in December and go back to January.
Right.
Because that's kind of confusing.
So it makes sense if they do it in order and release it in order. And as you said before, if keep people coming back, you want to have something new all the time. So yeah. That'll be the reason. You'll never know what they're going to digitize next. You'll have to keep coming back.
But listen, they have so much programming there. They can keep you coming for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that. And just the ability to go back and watch on demand any WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series you want, that is huge curb appeal for me, because then I don't have to dig out a DVD, put it in a player, switch my TV to the right input. I can just boom, click, and there it is.
Yeah. For me personally, if they're going to air the pay-per-view versions on there, I'm going to be happy. If they're going to air the ones that were put on home video back in the day, I'm going to be very unhappy.
Well, now there is a question about that, because I am given to understand they're going to edit out music and commentary where appropriate, because they don't have either the licensing rights or it's somebody that sued them in the past, like Jesse Ventura, and they're just not going to use it.
Just pony up the fucking money. Sorry. But if you're going to... We don't even have to go that far back. ECW One Night Stand. Do you want to watch the Sandman coming out to studio music?
No, no, I don't.
Half the fun was having all the original themes back.
Hmm. Yeah, I've got the version I taped when it aired that night, and I bought the DVD when it came out like 2 weeks later, and
Yeah.
they had already edited all of that out.
See, so if that's the case, I'm not going to be a happy camper because I want the original product. I want to see what I could have seen back in the day or did see back in the day. If you're going to have ECW television and you edit out all the entrances, what's going to remain of New Jack matches?
Yeah, if you don't hear that siren, it's not going to be New Jack.
What's gonna happen with the appeal of the Sandman?
Hmm.
Let's be honest. He was an entrance and an exit, and
Yeah,
pretty much nothing in between.
and it's going to be really odd when you see people lip syncing to the words and there's no music playing, because you can see that on the One Night Stand DVD. It's like you know something is wrong there because the crowd is singing along to something that's not being heard.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's also a concern of hardcores mainly, not of mainstream people, and they need mainstream people to make it work.
That's true. So
So we're talking from inside the bubble, far inside the bubble.
understandably, but as you said yourself, it's the hardcore that they're going to appeal to at the start. So they do have to make some concessions to the hardcores because they're the ones who are going to be the early adopters that spread the word evangelically to other people.
Right. That's one thing, of course. But in America, they're going to rely on having normal people go on the service right away. They need 1 million people on that service to make it work.
That's true. And they are trying to go as broad stream as possible to get that. They're going to Roku, PS4, PS3, Xbox One, Xbox 360. Pretty much any digital content provider you could think of, they're going to try to be on it.
Well, except for Apple. They're
Yeah,
not going to be on Apple.
that was the interesting thing. No Apple logos, no Apple TV mentioned. I did notice that.
That's because Apple wants a piece of the pie. Typically, Apple wants between 15 and 30% of what you make.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why they're not happy to do that versus 7% on Roku. But if you don't have Apple, you don't have the market. Apple is the dominant brand in these sort of electronics.
But isn't it going to become a workaround anyway? Like with me and my MacBook, I can pull up anything that I watch and put an HD plug in the side and stream it to my TV. So,
But do you want to do that?
I'm not saying I wouldn't prefer to do it through a PS3 if I could just pick up my remote, but I'm saying for people who only have a Mac, there is a workaround for that.
See, I travel a lot. Do you think I want to carry my laptop at all times?
No, of course not.
I have an iPad here. Why would I not want to watch on the iPad? I watch UFC.tv on the iPad. It works perfectly.
That's true.
Why can't I do the same with WWE Network? It's only about financials right now. And that's one thing they really need to figure out. They need to sit down with Apple and get clearance for iOS devices. Without iOS devices, it's never going to be mainstream.
Yeah. I hope they do work it out, but at least if they don't work it out, they're probably going to be dealing with people who, if they do have Apple devices, they probably also have a gaming console or a Roku or something else. So it's not like those people are going to be locked out. The technology adopters are going to have multiple products.
But the thing is, you're still relying on people being in their living room, and that's not realistic anymore these days. More and more people are watching television on the go.
That's true.
And you're not catching the portion that Apple owns, which is, by the way, still 80% of the market in that price segment. That's something people conveniently omit usually when talking about Android versus Apple versus iOS. People say, well, Android is the dominant platform. That's true, but only the low-cost segment. If you go to the price segment where Apple actually operates, it's still 80 to 20 for Apple. And Microsoft is basically not in the mix at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I see your point. Obviously, there's going to be ways for people to watch, but content moving forward needs to be brought to the consumer in the way the consumer prefers to consume it.
Well, on that point, I want to address Netflix real quickly because Netflix is one of those that's available any way you want to watch it, on your iPad, on your phone, on your Kindle, whatever you want to do, Netflix is available there. And my understanding is that the WWE content on Netflix is going to disappear now that WWE Network is rolling out.
Which would make sense from their perspective.
Yeah, but it's kind of a bummer for me because, like you said, when you want to watch things on demand, on the go, it's a great way to do it. Like, I can pull up the Stone Cold Steve Austin documentary that they did a couple of years ago and leave that playing while I'm working out at the gym on the treadmill or the stationary bike or whatever. It's like,
Yep.
You know, now I can't do that if they pull that off, but then if WWE Network is available on my phone, I'll probably get it back eventually.
Right. See, being on Netflix was just a stopgap measure for them to get the network off and running.
Mm.
They wanted to be part of the party, but they didn't want to be the party at the beginning. So that's why they did the deal with Netflix.
So, do you think this also cannibalizes their YouTube content as well? Do you think
Oh,
all
absolutely.
that's going away?
Oh, absolutely. You're going to see the YouTube content disappear like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm. And what about
Again,
that
it's
Yahoo deal that they did? I don't even remember seeing much of anything on Yahoo, but they made a big deal about it when they announced it.
yeah, well, Yahoo, 2014.
You say that's kind of self-explanatory.
Uh-huh. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But I think people are just going to have to get used to this idea that if they've seen WWE in other places, the WWE Network is going to be the one-stop shop. You're going to have to go there from now on.
Pretty much. I mean, WWE going on Yahoo is about as interesting as UFC.tv going on MySpace.
Is MySpace even a thing in 2014?
Well, it's not a thing, but it's still around, just like Yahoo. But let's be fair, Yahoo still makes a lot of money, and MySpace doesn't, so.
I don't even know what MySpace would make money on anymore. Is it like the rock bands who put up MySpace profiles? That's about it.
Back in the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So WWE Network is going to be a huge thing going forward, but you won't be able to sign up for it until February 24th after Raw that night. That's the launch day.
That was a nice sales pitch.
Mm,
I'm gonna have to buy it right away.
Yeah, I actually tried to buy it during the presentation. I went to WWE.com like, where is it? Where can I sign up and give them my money? I wanted to do the scene from Futurama where Fry just looks at the clerk and says, shut up and take my money.
See, the thing is, when we're starting to talk about, okay, and when are we going to be able to buy it? I was expecting to say right now, not February 24th. So that was kind of a missed opportunity, but it makes total sense, obviously, from the perspective of getting people locked in for WrestleMania season and after.
Plus, between now and February 24th, they have enough time to iron out the kinks. So hopefully when it goes live, there won't be any glitches.
Hopefully they commission season 2 of Legends House and put the Iron Sheik in there.
You really think they could handle the Iron Sheik?
The man with a 10-inch contract.
Oh, man, no. I'm not sure that even WWE Network can handle that. They might need a content censor filter for that.
Pretty much. But it's going to be uncensored, so.
That's true.
It's going to be uncensored, and it's 18 and over, so you're definitely going to get all of the Iron Sheik if they put him on.
Which reminds me, there is one point I want to address before we wrap it up today, Oliver, and that's that Chris Benoit footage has been announced, will be available on the network, but will have a parental advisory warning before. Your thoughts?
Where to begin? Personally, I think it's the right decision to have his matches on there. You can't really erase him from history. I'm still terribly conflicted about what he actually did. There's no way to sugarcoat that. At the same time, what good does it do to completely erase him and his matches from history?
Yeah, you can't really pretend he didn't exist. You can't act like he wasn't the main event of WrestleMania 20 if you have WrestleMania 20 on demand.
Especially since he was such an integral part of the WWE's title picture for such a long time. Mm-hmm. So if you take out all his matches, a lot of angles, a lot of things don't make sense anymore. Yeah, and again, I'm feeling terribly conflicted about this. And I totally supported Dave on his quest to get him removed from the Hall of Fame. And that's come from somebody who was friends with him. But I prefer being able to make that choice on my own and not having somebody else make the choice for me. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. I think we as wrestling fans who've been watching it for a long time can make the conscientious decision that we don't endorse what he did, but we can still watch his matches.
Exactly. Might not buy a t-shirt or something or anything, but you still have to look. It's a historical document in a way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there are a lot of bad people you can still see on the news because it was news what they did.
Well, yeah, I mean, we still talk about Al Qaeda, even though Osama bin Laden's dead. You know, he's a part of history now too. So,
I'm probably not going to go and make that comparison, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying there's a direct line between one or the other, but I'm saying they're both people who did an evil thing.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable subject because people are going to be very passionate one way or the other, and whatever you say on the topic, you're just going to get ambushed for it.
That's true. And I'm not trying to get you ambushed, or me ambushed for that matter, but we wanted to make it clear that WWE made that decision and did reveal that they would put a huge sticker of warning over it, like, hey, if you don't want to discuss this with your kids, don't watch this with your kids. We're telling you. So
exactly.
I think that's the right approach. I think they're covering all their bases.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I found pretty surprising yesterday. When Stephanie was on stage and said that while all this was going on, the company is fighting for its survival, I didn't expect them to be referencing the Monday Night Wars thing. I was expecting them to announce a documentary on Vince's steroid trial.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that's going to come up on WWE Network?
Hell no. Hell no. Not going to happen.
Yeah. We will not see any footage of the trial. We will not see Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan being grilled by prosecutors. It won't happen.
But it would have been a ballsy move. I would have definitely applauded them for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I can completely understand why they wouldn't want to.
Yeah. Although I do look forward to seeing the shows from around that time, knowing what was going on, that once they're on demand, I'm going to be watching those shows very closely and see if there are any little tells about what was going on in the actual TV product.
Yeah. The funniest part about the press conference yesterday was sitting there with Dave Meltzer, the Antichrist, at a WWE press conference.
But he was invited, though, so.
Well, yeah. Again, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time where people couldn't even talk to him without getting fired.
Yeah.
And here he was at a WWE official press conference being credentialed.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a nice sign of the change of times?
Yeah. I think that's a progressive change that we needed to see, that, embrace the media that's out there covering wrestling instead of trying to pretend they don't exist.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
On that note, I'm glad we had you on today, Oliver, because we're addressing this whole WWE network as well as the CES in general. Oh, it's a pleasure, Oliver. Take care, and I'll be talking to you again down the road.
You too. Take care.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.